Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this spooktacular Spinsterella story. Pick up your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Many corporations are looking to take advantage of the economic instability that's going on in America's economy by looking to make many of their workers extremely anxious. Now, what these corporations and businesses want to do is go out here and stoke anxiety among their workers in an effort to try to retain workers in jobs, and also look to go out here and look to keep many of these workers working harder than they actually should in an effort to increase productivity. Now, this is a trend that has been going on ever since the days of the big businesses that went on in the early turn of the 20th century, where many companies like those run by people like Andrew Carnegie, what they would do is look to take advantage of employees by looking to, again, create an environment of anxiety among their workers, and look to create that environment of anxiety in an effort to go out here and get profits at the expense of people's fears. And that's what's going on right now, as America's economy is in a very unstable place, basically established by the inflation of the Biden administration and the tariffs of the Orange Man. And what's happening is that many of these corporate executives and many of these managers hope to go out and exploit many of these workers' fears, hope to exploit these workers' fears in an effort to go out here and make big profits at the expense of the people they hired to go out here and work for them. And what they hope to do by going out here and stoking this anxiety is hoping to go out here and crack a whip on people who are basically have their nerves frayed. And as these people have their nerves frayed by high prices at the grocery store and high prices at the gas pump and high prices as related to everyday cost of living, what they want to do is threaten their employment and threaten the only thing that possibly will give them any sort of stability as related to their employment, in an effort to go out here and profit by increasing their productivity at the expense of the fears of the average everyday American. And what these companies, what they want to do is go out here and threaten the security of the average everyday American's job by going out here and looking to either start rumors and gossip to get people scared, and start that rumors and gossip as related to people's job security, as related to starting gossip saying, oh, this department may possibly close, or this person basically may be targeted for termination due to job cuts or layoffs. And also what they do is also, again, look to start these rumors and gossip to get people really scared, or tell them that in order for the company to profit, they need a certain level of productivity. Again, these are all things that these companies do that are extremely unethical to get people scared, and look to get people so scared and worried about their jobs that they're not really thinking about going out and looking to take care of themselves as related to not only their physical health, but their mental health. And what these people don't really understand is that when you go out here and stoke anxiety in people and create an environment of anxiety, you basically create a workplace that ironically becomes less productive, and becomes less productive because when people are basically afraid for their jobs and afraid about the security and stability of their lives, what happens to those people is that they don't become as productive as they would if they were in a place where they were in a state of calm. Now, when it comes to these companies, a lot of these companies are run by very, very insecure people like nerds and bean counters these days. And because these nerds and bean counters have a disconnection to people, they don't know how to lead people or motivate people to be their best. So what these companies look to do that are run by these nerds and bean counters is basically they look to drive people through fear because they have no connection to people based on humanity. No, many of these companies these days, like these tech companies out here, or many of these corporations that have been bought or to work with people who are in big tech, many of these people, again, have no regard for people because they come from environments that were basically facts and figures and numbers all around. And because they come from environments that are mostly numbers, facts, and figures, they don't understand how to treat people because many of these people, again, never really read the Bible to understand the principles that God established in His 2 commandments to love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself, or to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. No, many of these people think that they are, because they have been bullied and harassed when they were in junior high school and high school, believe that now that they have power, they look to use their power to go out here and treat people the way they used to be treated. And what they want to do is basically create an environment of anxiety, believing that if people are scared, they will be able to maintain their power, believe that they will basically have people running and scrambling basically to, again, maintain an existence. And that's not the way you would want to treat your workers. No, that's not the way you should want to treat your workers whatsoever. No, when it comes down to your workers, you need to treat people, again, the way you want to be treated. But many of these people, again, don't really understand the Word of God and don't understand how to treat people. And that's why they want to stoke this environment of anxiety and have people scared as related to them, again, losing their job. What they want to do is not foster an interdependent relationship where people go out here and work towards their goals and develop their skills and basically move on. And if they go out here and if they want to actualize their potential, they can go out here and do that. No, what many of these insecure nerds and other bean counters want to do is foster a codependent relationship where they believe that because they run the company, they have all the power. And since they have all the power, they believe it is their right to go out here and abuse those workers. They believe that it is their right to go out here and abuse those workers by having them afraid, and having them terrified as related to possibly losing their livelihood and losing their way to make a living. And that's no way to live whatsoever, because as someone who suffers from anxiety, I can tell you that it's really not a good thing to have somebody anxious, because when someone is anxious, they're basically dealing with so much stress that they cannot concentrate. And if they're dealing with so much stress, their body starts to react in a negative way where the person starts to have things like they start to have lumps in their throat whenever they have to deal with certain situations, or their body goes into chest pain or into nausea or convulsions. I mean, a person, it just becomes physically sick as related to things because they're just so afraid of their whole life falling completely apart. And that's not a place you want to have your workers being in, because if a person is in that place, again, yes, they're working for you and you're secure that this person is still in this job as related to being in a place of insecurity. But in that place of insecurity, you're not going to get the best productivity from that worker, because that worker's mind will not be in the right place to be able to give you really good solid work and give you a quality performance as related to the job. No, that person's mind will not be in a good place, and with it not being in a good place, they're basically, again, not in a place where they're going to give you their very best or be motivated to give you their very best, because, again, a scared person is not going to be in a place where their mind is right. And if a person's place isn't in a place where their mind is right, they're not going to be looking to be the best worker on the job. Now, again, when you destabilize people's lives and you have people, at a case of extreme anxiety, basically you have a person who's basically, their nerves are frayed, they're on edge. And again, this is not a person who has a sharp focus as related to giving you a quality performance as related to the job. And that's not going to increase your productivity or your profits. No, it's going to create situations where you have things like, if you work in retail, like shrink, or you wind up taking major losses. This is where the nerds and the bean counters really don't see how their quest for power basically is going to cost them in the long term, because anxious workers do not become productive workers. Anxious workers who are worried about the price of groceries or the price of gas or the ability to be able to pay their bills. This is not a worker who's going to be able to give you their very best. But many of these insecure nerds, again, they want this type of worker because they're afraid of having to deal with actual competition. And they're afraid that if people are in a place where they are relaxed and comfortable, they will look to leave the job, and possibly look to become competition. And that really is something that is detrimental to the overall American economy. Because when you have people who do not go out here and can go out here and feel comfortable on the job as related to having a professional environment where they can feel mentally secure about their workplace, what will happen is you will get people who won't be productive, and the only thing you're going to have around you are a bunch of yes men who will give you no answers because they're afraid to disagree with you. They're afraid to push back on you. They're afraid to challenge you. And in the business world, having people push back and challenge is a good thing, because when people push back and challenge people, it basically gives them perspective on a idea that they had and gives them a better understanding of how things could work, and gives them a bigger picture to really think about things outside of the ideas that are inside of their own head. Because what happens with many of those in corporate America is that you have a lot of folks who are living inside of their heads, and as they live inside of their heads, they basically think, oh, if I scare everyone, I'll be able to maintain my power, not understanding that you're putting yourself in a place where you're about to lose all your power, because the whole thing is that you have to learn how to work with other people towards achieving your goals. And again, a company is only as good as their people. And if your people are afraid, they're not going to go out here and have an incentive to give you their very best. And they're going to have an even less incentive to care. That's what flies over the heads of those who want to push this whole anxiety culture inside of corporate America. They want to push this anxiety culture and look to threaten, intimidate, bully, and harass people into working harder for them, even though Americans themselves these days, I believe, are overworked at this point. No human being should be working 60-hour days like one of these Google executives believes people need to work. Nobody should be working 12, 14-hour days. No human being should be working that many hours in a day for any company. No, people do need space to breathe. People need room to breathe, and teams need room to breathe. That's why you don't have to make your team so lean, because if you make a team too lean, what happens is if one person leaves, the entire team falls completely apart. And you really don't want to staff anything that lean. You really want to have a little bit of room as related to, so that people, if one person gets sick, another person can come in and take over, or if a person resigns, another person can come in. You want to have that flexibility, but many of these business folks these days, they're so caught up in their quest for power and their quest for greed, they go out here and are just obsessed with looking to demean and humiliate people, because they want people to be scared for their job. Again, it really reminds me of Charles Montgomery Burns on the TV show The Simpsons, who basically had no regard for human beings and just wanted to just have power, but he was just a sad, pathetic old man who was all by himself. And that's what I see many of these tech types and many of these nerds, again, guys who don't really see the people who work for them, don't see them, don't regard them, and again want to trigger this anxiety, trigger this fear as related to people's life security, and want to trigger this not ever thinking about the Word of God, which states that again we need to follow Jesus as related to his 2 commandments, which are to love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I would also go on to say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, because I doubt any of these wealthy types who push this anxiety culture would want to live in that type of anxiety and be fearing for their lives or fearing for their daily bread if they had to go through that type of situation. I mean, I doubt many of these same people who push this anxiety culture, again, what I call corporate bullying, basically, would they want to live in that situation if they had to deal with fearing losing their job over the most minute slight? Would they want to have to deal with that every day as related to their job? Critical question I want to propose to many of these tech nerds and tech executives and other types of executives and even government bosses. Again, would you want to be living in constant fear every day as related to your job? Would you want to be living in constant fear of being fired over the most minutest thing? Would you want to be living in fear as related to, again, being threatened of being written up over trivial matters? I mean, that type of stress is not something that, again, is going to make people want to perform to their very best. No, it's not going to make people want to perform to their very best. If anything, what it's going to do is go out here and lead to, again, passive-aggressive resistance, where people are taking off days and calling out sick because they basically have had their mental health pushed to the limit. And as their mental health is pushed to the limit, you're not getting any more productivity because you're basically looking to cause chaos and cause drama every day. And that's something that, again, is not a good thing for your business, because if people are not in a place where their mind is right, they're not going to be out here looking to, again, be focused on their job. And you may wind up pushing people to the point where they hit a zone that I call the place of having nothing to lose. And that's not a place you really want to push someone to, where they feel like they have nothing to lose, where they have been attacked to the point by toxic bosses and verbally abused by toxic bosses and threatened by toxic bosses and forced to work long hours by toxic bosses, where this person goes from having frayed nerves to basically having their nerves basically snap. This is not a place you want to put your workers in, because if you put your workers in that place, it sadly may lead to a tragedy similar to what happened to that United Healthcare CEO, or many of the tragic mass shootings that have taken place in this country. Again, many of these bosses don't see the powder keg that they're creating by trying to stoke all these fears. Again, when you stoke fears and you get people scared, again, you put people in a place where you're putting the entire environment into a powder keg. And again, the only thing that can happen with a powder keg is that if you crack the whip on those employees, it may create a spark of an explosion that may do damage to your business and may even cause people to basically wind up in a situation where their lives are in jeopardy. And that's not something many of these guys are thinking about, because they don't really think about people, don't really care about people, because they put profits over people. And again, that's not a good business, because a business is not about putting profits over people. It's about people pursuing their passions. And that's the sad part that's happened to America's businesses, is that we've gotten so corporatized that we no longer are considering the human element. We're no longer considering the people as related to those businesses. No, it's all about profit and all about trying to drive profit to the point of driving people like slaves, driving people like slaves to the point where what they don't see is if you push people too far, they will, again, feel like they have nothing to lose and wind up revolting from you. Revolting because in a codependent relationship, eventually there's a point where the abuser and the victim, again, you reach the point where the victim winds up losing it. And again, many people don't think that that thing can happen here in America with big business, but that's why they don't really see anything, because again, nerds can't see people. That's a big problem with nerds and other types who are detached. Again, they have no connection to people. All they're thinking about is results. All they're thinking about profit. But what good is profit if you don't take care of your people? Your people are your most valuable asset. And again, if you want productivity, if you want innovation, if you want creativity, you've got to treat your people right. You've got to treat your people right. And the last thing anybody who wants to treat people right wants to do is go out here and stoke anxiety in people. The last thing you want people to do is have them being afraid that they're going to lose their job any day based on an arbitrary whim. The last thing you want is a person who basically is afraid that they're not going to be able to make their rent or make their mortgage or because many Americans live in paycheck to paycheck. You don't want people sitting up scared, because again, when people are sitting up scared, it's again you're creating a powder keg of dynamite. And again, many of these nerds and many of these bean counters, they're so caught up in their numbers, they can't see the whole social situation as related to these jobs. They can't see that, again, human beings' emotions are like dynamite. And again, the last thing you want to do is crack a whip, ignite a spark, and cause an explosion, because anything in the path of that explosion is going to be pure destruction. And many people don't see the damage they could do to their business or even to themselves, because again, many nerds and many bean counters, they never had power in their own lives as related to themselves, and they want to again get power by humiliating people, getting people scared, getting them upset. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that at all. You don't want to be pushing people's buttons, again, because an anxious person, I can tell you from having anxiety, is always on alert, always on edge. And again, it's just a matter of pushing that person the wrong way that could lead to, again, a tragic situation, because a herd of anxious people is an extremely dangerous thing. And that's what America is cultivating, just like they did during the COVID pandemic with George Floyd. You basically created this whole powder keg situation, and then you had people like Gretchen Whitmer, again, telling people they couldn't buy Easter candy at Target, and again, creating a powder keg situation that eventually exploded with the murder of George Floyd. And again, the same thing is happening in American workplaces by bosses who are completely out of touch with their people, completely out of touch, not talking to their people, not talking to your workers, not seeing if your workers are all right, not taking care of your workers. Because one of the things you have to do when you run in a business is you got to take care of your people, because in order for you to get the best products and the best quality service, you have to take care of your people, make sure that their bills are paid, make sure that they are secure, because if they're all right, they can go out here and help you take care of your business. And the way you take care of their business is, again, making sure those people are good, making sure those people are stable, making sure those people are okay. That's your job as an employer, to take care of your people, take care of them so that they can take care of you, and do unto them as you would want done unto you if you were on a job. Again, I wouldn't, and you were out here, you shouldn't want anybody to be anxious. I don't want, if anyone who works for me freelance, to be anxious about things. That's why one of the things I try to do is make sure that their money is ready before I even contact them about a project, if I can. And in most cases, I do have that money ready for them so that they can understand, hey, you're gonna get paid. Even if I go out here, you're gonna get paid, and you're gonna get paid for this cover, you're gonna get paid for this art. I mean, that's what I try to do for people here at SJS Direct, because I want that done unto me, that, okay, if I go out here and I do work, the money's gonna be there. And again, let people know how things are going as related to their work. I mean, that's what leadership is all about, and that's something that's missing from many companies that basically are run by bosses who basically came into to money because they basically were good at something, but the one thing that they were not good at is people, because it's inhumane to work people 60 hours and say that that's the sweet spot. It's inhumane, like Elon Musk proposes, to be sleeping at a company in order to get work done. I know for myself from working for myself, again, you don't need to go to those extremes. No, you don't need to work 60 hours to get stuff done. You don't need to be sleeping in a business to get stuff done. No, if you want work done, you go out here and do the best that you can. And again, God will go out here and bless what you're doing. And again, God wants us to work, but he does not want us to work like maniacs, because that's called idolatry. And that's not something that's productive. No, not productive at all when you're living in fear, because he does not want us to have fear. He wants us to have faith. He wants us to have faith and trust in him because he's the provider of all resources. He wants us to trust in him and trust in him to go out here and do our labors, because God made men to do labor and made men and women both to do labor, but he doesn't want that labor done out of fear. He wants it done out of trust in an interdependent relationship where we bring our best labors to God and we do our best labors to him and honor him by doing those labors, because we were put here to glorify him. And that's what God wants us to do as related to labor. He does not want us to be worried about a job and worried about getting fired from a job based on the whims of somebody, based on their feelings. No, that's not what God would want us to do. And he doesn't want us getting so caught up in greed that all we're thinking about is putting profits over people and not doing our very best. No, that's not how God wants us to work. And the way that we are working, again, is not really good, because, again, anxious workers are not productive workers. Anxious workers make mistakes. Anxious workers rush and do things in a very haphazard fashion. Anxious workers, again, have rattled nerves and really cannot concentrate and wind up missing things. Anxious workers really cannot go out here and bring their very best to the table because, again, your nerves are frazzled, your body is stressed, you've been pushed too far. And when you push a person too far, what happens is that they wind up cracking, and that's why you wind up with these great tragedies that go on, like the death of the United Healthcare CEO, or the case of many of these mass shooting incidents. Again, when you push people too far, again, it creates powder kegs. And again, no smart employer wants to create a powder keg. They want to create a professional environment where people feel safe and secure about talking to a leader about problems and working to solve those problems together. It's not about trying to jockey for power and trying to get ahead. It's about being the best employee you can be, working towards the goals you want to accomplish at that company. And then if you want to move someplace else, you feel safe about moving someplace else without any sort of reprisal, like people saying, oh, you're going to get a bad reference or a bad letter of recommendation. No, people shouldn't be afraid to move from their jobs and shouldn't be afraid to go on with their lives, because America's Constitution stated we're supposed to be here for the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And codependency is not about life or liberty or pursuit. It's people too afraid to move anywhere. And if people are too afraid to move anywhere because they feel like their lives are chaotic, that means your nation is on the brink of collapse. It's on the brink of collapse because if people cannot feel like they can move forward, then they feel like they're going nowhere. And if someone feels like they're going nowhere, and they start to get nervous and scared, and they feel like they have nothing to lose. So the whole culture of corporate anxiety is something that I believe is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous situation. And many of these corporate bosses, because they're in their high towers, don't see how they're playing with fire and how them playing with fire can lead to their entire operation winding up melting like wax and falling completely apart because you're stoking a fire that you don't know how devastating it can be as related to anxious people. Anxious people are dangerous because not only are they in a place where they're on the edge, they're on a place where they're on the edge and you don't know what they're capable of doing. And that's the danger of having an anxious workforce. And the danger of having an anxious workforce is that a business can wind up going out of business sooner rather than later. Now, if you want to pick up my book, Stop Simping in the Workplace, to learn how to identify workplace predators and set a course for your career, you can find that book on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find it at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more videos talking about the workplace, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteemed series adventure. Pick up your copy of Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA, from the Black Boule, in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.